Hi, I'm Allen Henderson, a broker at Henderson Real Estate. Welcome to the Ahwatukee History Project. Today, Marty's going to interview Joe Garner. Joe's the grandson of Arthur and Molly Hunter. In 1909, Arthur Hunter homesteaded the land in the open desert at what would become 48th Street and Thistle Landing. It was the start of what became Hunter Ranch. The ranch grew and became an integral part of the Kyrene Farming Community. Joe grew up on the Hunter Ranch. Hunter Ranch was located on a dirt road known as Hunter Drive, which is now known as 48th Street. Joe loved the ranch and refers to it as his wonderland and his playground. Let's listen in as Joe tells us about his grandfather Arthur Hunter, his grandmother Molly, their family, and their early years on the homestead at Hunter Ranch.
Long Beach, California is a long way from what became Ahwatukee. How on earth did Arthur Hunter, what drew him here?
Well, I was told that his father-in-law, Mr. Williams, Jacob Williams, read about land available in Arizona. And him being a landowner in California, he kept up with those notices.
Right.
And he told my grandfather, look, you got to provide for my daughter. And there's some land available. You might want to go check it out, you know. So he came over here and found the homestead at 48th Street and Thistle Landing. And he went back and told his father-in-law, he said, I have a homestead. And so he said, well, he said, then as long as you can provide for my daughter, you can marry her. So they got married and they came here in 11. And he started a homestead. And, you know, he wanted to create a self-sustaining environment for himself and his wife.
Right. What came first, the cattle and the chickens or the crops?
The cow came first. He had a cow, and then he had some chickens because he needed milk and eggs. And he needed to provide for a baby that was coming, so, you know, the logical thing was to have milk. And so they started out with a cow and a couple of chickens and went from there and grew up to be a dairy farmer and a farmer.
And how many kids did Arthur and Molly end up having?
Arthur and Molly ended up having 8 children, 4 boys and 4 girls. And my mother was the 7th of the 8 children. She was the second youngest girl. And they all the people lived on the ranch until they moved away. So he provided, you know, living for them until they decided when they married and moved away. But my mother was not, I wasn't gonna say favorite, but my mother was the one that kept coming back to the ranch to help out, you know, and stuff, because she felt her and her mother were very close.
So Arthur and Molly and 8 children.
Yes. In
a 2-bedroom house.
Yes, sir.
How'd that work?
I assumed they slept in shifts. No, there was a lean-to outside between the bunkhouse and the main house. There was a lean-to that they all had wooden beds that they slept in the summertime.
Okay.
In the wintertime when it was cold, the kids slept on the floor. The oldest kids got to sleep in the bedrooms, and the girls usually took the bedrooms. The boys took the floor in front of the fireplace, and they kept. That's how they kept warm.
Can you give us a little feel for Arthur Hunter, the man?
Arthur was a very imposing man. He was 6'2", 6'3". In his younger days, he probably shrank to 6'2", but he was 220 pounds, and he was a very imposing individual. He had a very big torso, chest-wise. He wore a 60 jacket, a size 60 jacket, and he was very incredibly strong man. Grandma was 5'3", 5'4", maybe 100 pounds if she had a couple of rocks in her pocket. But she was the catalyst behind it. There was always a good woman behind a good man, he used to say.
He was a well-read man, wasn't he?
Very well. He was self-taught. He was very educated by his own admission to. He was a big fan of the ICS courses, International Correspondence courses.
Okay.
He wrote to them and asked them for every information on how to be a farmer. He understood that in order to be a farmer, he had to know how to farm.
Right.
And he would study the ICS courses at night, and Grandma would fact check him the next morning, and then he would send it off into the mail. But he took all the animal husbandry, crop rotations, anything that related to animal husbandry or crops. He took to learn, and he became a very successful dairyman and farmer.
The homestead at what is now 48th Street and Thistle Landing was how many acres?
The homestead was 160 acres. We had 47 acres on the east side of 48th Street, and the rest of the acreage was on the west side. And our acreage ran, the south branch of the Highland Canal ran through the land.
Well, that was convenient, right?
It was. We thought that was a great thing, except the water rights were only on the south side of the ditch, not the north side of the ditch. So he could only farm on the south side of the canal.
Wouldn't gravity play a role in that? It'd be tough to farm uphill.
The lay of the land went from northwest to southeast. Okay. So the water ran downhill.
Yeah. Okay.
From the canal, so that watered his land.
You mentioned he read those correspondence courses, or he studied them at night.
Yes.
Did he sleep much?
He was a unique individual, in my opinion, because he only required 1 hour of sleep a night.
That's unique.
He slept from 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock.
And he's up for the day at 1 o'clock.
And he's read the night until the milking started at 4. Then he would do the milking.
Wow.
But he would read and study through the night until he became about 80 years old. And then he told me, he said, son, he said, I'm so tired. He said, I'm going to have to take another hour. And then he slept from 12 o'clock to 2 o'clock.
Getting lazy, huh?
Yeah, yeah. No, he was a very intense individual about learning. Right.
And he also was was he a Sunday school teacher?
He was a Sunday school teacher, extremely religious. He was always in connection with God in his practices.
But he became involved with the local school, right?
Yes, he was on the school board at Kyrene School. He was very much involved in the education of the children from a board member view.
Right.
And when the Kyrene School moved from McClintock and Elliott down to where it is now, at Kyrene and Warner, he was very happy because it was closer.
One of my dear friends and one of the most well-rounded sources for both of my history books was a fellow named Tom Owens, who unfortunately is no longer with us. But I remember talking to Tom, and he referred to his Sunday school teacher. Now, Tom was in his late 80s when he said this to me, and he very respectfully said, Mr. Hunter didn't tolerate a lot. He was a serious Sunday school teacher. Can you tell me, is that reflected accurately?
He was absolutely dedicated to the Sunday school teaching. He did not tolerate any tomfoolery in the Sunday school. Yeah. You went there for a purpose, and that was the purpose.
You mentioned his size. He had a booming voice, too, didn't he?
His voice would make a man stop. He had this volume of projection of his voice that carried, and you were like, oh, Mr. Hunter, how are you, sir? And everybody referred to him as Mr. Hunter. I've never heard anybody call him by his first name, Arthur, of the community.
Right.
He was not known as Arthur. It was Mr. Hunter.
Yeah.
If you enjoyed the video and want to see future episodes of the Ahwatukee History Project, be sure to give us a like and click the subscribe button. Questions and comments are always welcome.